Welcome back to the AD Lab series. In this one, we are going to be sticking with the reconnaissance that we were doing even in the last video. This is Ryan from elevatecyber back with another one, and we're going to be exploiting LLMNR. And I think exploiting is the correct term here. I know that LLMNR is a feature, NetBIOS is a feature of Windows, but they are legacy. They're basically legacy protocols, just like Telnet and things like that. Literally, the mitigation advice on them is don't use them, like straight up. The only mitigation is like disable it, don't use it. So we're going to be using a tool called Responder to do that. Now, there's a number of ways, a number of tools out there that we could use to exploit this. I think Responder is probably the most popular tool to do so. If we take a look at the options here, right, just like the help menu here, there's a number of things that it can do, but basically we're going to be listening on ETH0, and we're going to be listening for, for NetBIOS requests or LLMNR. I really just want to do an illustration for this. I think is the best way to explain this, right? So if we have our host on our Windows domain, right? These are our hosts here, right? Most of the time they have names and they're part of the DNS, right? So when this user here, this computer here, tries to access a share, an SMB share on this server, you're gonna type in like whack whatever the name is, right? So if you ever did that in the File Explorer, connect to a remote share, that's how you would do it, right? And if the name exists on the DNS server, then it's going to use DNS and that's it, right? However, if it doesn't find it in DNS, then what it's going to do is it's going to ask around. Ask this guy, like, hey, which server has the name, whatever the name is they typed in the search bar, right? Now, with LLMNR poisoning, which is what we're going to be doing, is one of these circles, one of these actors is going to be us. We're going to be like the malicious actor, right? So let's say this is us here. So when in the event that a user is looking for something and it can't find it in DNS, it's going to start asking around. If it asks us, we're going to say, hey, it's me. I have it. And send me your hash, and no one gets hurt, right? You'll be like, hey, I have it. Send me your hash, right? So that's how we're going to respond to it. And basically, it's going to say, okay, yeah, great. Here's here's my hash. Here's my username. And in Windows, if you get a hash, a lot of times you're good to go. You pretty much won at that point because of pass the hash and things like that we're going to see later on in this series. However, you can also crack these hashes offline using Hashcat, of course. And if the user has a weak password, then you can see just how trivial it is to crack these hashes. It's really easy to crack an NTLM hash. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. And we'll show you like how important it is to have complex passwords because it makes a huge difference. So with that being said, let's go right back into Responder here, into our Kali box. We are on the network, right? So the domain controller is 192.168.1.20, and we're able to reach, so we're on the network. And so if we look at our NICs here, ETH0 is the one that's connected to this network. So I want to listen on the ETH0 interface. So what I could do is then say Python responder, and we're going to pass -i until it interface ETH0. And then let me scroll up for this to show you guys. I'm going to use -d for MBTNS domain. Because, I guess I should have mentioned this, right? So going back to the example real quick, I want to make sure I cover this. Going back to this example, first it tries DNS. If it doesn't find that, it tries LLMNR, which we can poison and say, hey, we have this name. Send us your hash. And then the third thing it tries is NBTS, I think, NetBIOS, basically. That is what it tries after LLMNR. So we can also spoof that as well by using this -d flag. So we're going to do that. We're going to do -w to start up a WPAD rogue server. And we're also going to do the -r here to do the NetBIOS suffix queries. So with that being said, let's scroll down here. And we could say W, and then, oh yeah, -v will give us verbose output. So with all that, we'll run it. And now it's listening for events. And I can scroll up here. So you can see we have 3 poisoners going on here. We have LLMNR, NBTNS, NetBIOS, right? And also DNS, MDNS. And here's our servers that we got as well. So now it's just listening. It's just straight up listening for events. So it's good to run this early if you're on an engagement, right? You want to run this early enough so that throughout the day, if someone tries to access a share, maybe they mistype something or they try to look up something that's not in DNS, we can capture their hash. So I will go to the user box on this network, the test user account here that we made in the previous videos in the series. And if I'm logged in, right, in my file explorer, let's just say, let's see, unknown server, right? Not in DNS, right? Anything. I can just type anything here. It doesn't matter. And what we'll see is if we go back to the Kali box, we have captured this user's hash. This is test user of the Elevate domain, and this is the hash here. So now we can use this with Hashcat to try and crack the hash, or we could just try and pass the hash and see what we can authenticate to in the domain using this hash here. So what I would do is I would just copy this highlighted part here. And with Hashcat, you know, I've covered it before in the video, but I'm gonna run through it in this one as well. I would highly recommend to not do it in the VM because you're gonna get way better performance and crack password or crack hashes in this case way faster if you do it on your actual host machine, especially if you have a decent graphics card as I do. Mine's getting a little bit up there in the age. I have a GTX 980, or sorry, 1080. I had GTX 1080, and it's not as good as the latest and greatest, but it's still, you can crack stuff pretty fast. So that's what I've done here. I've already got it here, and behind the scenes already added this hash to a text file that I'm calling hashes.txt. So that's the only background info that you need to know for this. So hashcat 64exe-m, and you'd have to look up the code for this, but I'll tell you what it is offhand. The code to crack NTLM v2 hashes is 5600. So I will pass that in there. And now I will say the name of the hash file, which I said is hashes.txt. And then the name of the word list, I'm going to run it against RockU because it's very comprehensive. Press enter. And yeah, you just let it do its thing. Looks like it poisoned something else here as well. But yeah, we actually did crack the hash here. In particular, this is the password right here, password1, exclamation point. Not a very secure password. Yeah, it's using the uppercase, lowercase, number, and special character, but it's doing it in a very predictable way, right? This is a very common way. So don't think that, and this goes to show you see how fast we cracked that. That was insanely fast. This goes to show you that don't be like one of those people that are like, oh, I have to meet the password requirements. Let me just put an exclamation point at the end of my password. Yeah, it's more complex in the sense that you're using more variety of characters, but it still is very trivial to crack, because this is a very common thing, because most people are lazy, right? And they're going to do something like that. So make sure that your password is really complex, like way more so than this. Just because you have a number, an uppercase, lowercase, and a special character does not mean that it is a secure password. So now we can see that verifiably, which is pretty cool. So yeah, now at this point, we could use this to log into the domain as that user. We have fully compromised this account in every sense of it. So yeah, hopefully this one was helpful to you guys in learning this stuff. And we're going to be diving into way more stuff when it comes to Active Directory exploitation. We're just scratching the surface here. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do in an Active Directory domain environment. We got our lab fully set up, and we're just ready to sort of crank through these. So let me know if this is a video series that you guys are enjoying, and I will keep making content for it for sure. So yeah, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that already, and hit the like button as well to help get this message out there. And if you want to get caught up on the series, I got the videos on screen right now. I'll see you guys in those videos. Thanks for watching.